Malaysia's digital journey began more than 2 decades ago when MSC Malaysia was set up to transform the country into a knowledge-based economy. Since then, MSC Malaysia has contributed immensely towards the growth of the nation's digital economy. Our next step is to take the digital transformation from the corridor to the world. Introducing Malaysia Digital, a strategic initiative which will empower the rakyat, businesses and foreign investments. Malaysia Digital will also elevate the participation of Malaysians and local businesses in revolutionizing the world's digital economy. Malaysia Digital opens doors for Malaysians by providing equitable access to digital tools, knowledge and income opportunities. It offers new business opportunities and growth through a supportive digital ecosystem. It also provides flexible and agile investment facilitation to make the country investment friendly. The goal is to drive the digital ecosystem and develop the digital economy to a stage where it contributes at least 25.5% of our GDP and creates 500,000 jobs by 2025.
Malaysia Digital will galvanize public-private partnerships to accelerate the growth of our digital economy and drive positive transformation that ultimately benefit the rakyat, businesses, investors, and also the whole nation.
Establishing Malaysia into a digital nation, one with more adept, stronger and resilient economy, society and governance. Stepping into tomorrow's digital future today.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam perpaduan, salam Malaysia Madani. I'm pleased to share a groundbreaking initiative that is shaping the future of our nation, the National Data Sharing Policy or NDSP. In 2022, the government launched the NDSP, a visionary policy that transcends boundaries, encompassing the public sector, the private sector, and the rakyat. This policy holds the key to fostering a data sharing environment that is not only conducive but transformative. It aims to unleash the true potential of data, improve the quality and transparency of service delivery, stimulate innovation, and drive economic growth through data-driven solutions. The formulation of NDSP envisions a nation where data knows no bounds, where its accessibility and usability are at the core of our digital landscape. By actively engaging in this endeavor, we are laying a strong foundation for the next evolution of our digital ecosystem. We're embarking on a journey to build a stronger and more secure digital foundation for Malaysia. It is the keystone of our digital transformation agenda, empowering us to become a more inclusive, resilient, sustainable, and forward-thinking nation. Embracing responsible and ethical data sharing will unlock significant value for our society and economy, enhancing our competitiveness on the global stage. I encourage all of you to support this policy and explore the vast opportunities that data sharing presents. To raise awareness and gather valuable feedback, we have initiated the NDSP series, a collaborative effort by the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation or MDEC, Malaysia Kini, and Digital News Asia or DNA, with the support of the Ministry of Communications and Digital. This series aims to educate the public about the benefits and challenges of data sharing, while gathering opinions and suggestions to enhance the policy and its implementation. Your active participation in these discussions will be instrumental in shaping the data sharing practices in Malaysia, leading us towards a secure and dynamic digital world. and let us embark on this remarkable journey together.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the third National Data Sharing Policy panel discussion titled The Data Democracy, What is the Value of Your Data to the Government? This is, of course, the third in a series of NDSP talks. I believe the first one was hosted by Majid, and the second one, oh, now it slipped my mind, of course. Didn't write this down and I'm trying to do it off the cuff. But this one, in this particular talk, we're going to be focusing on how the NDSP can benefit the government and how the government can offer better services and provide better outreach to the rakyat through better data sharing. Now, for those of you who don't know, the National Data Sharing Policy is a policy enacted recently by the government. Its objective is to drive the economic growth of the country through data sharing, and the objective is to make Malaysia eventually a data-driven country. I have a series of panelists, guests with me here today. First one is Encik Mohamad Husni Abdul Aziz, Principal Assistant Secretary at the Policy and Strategic Planning Division, Ministry of Communications and Digital Malaysia. He not only is working with the ministry that is pushing this policy, he's also been one of the members working on the NDSP for quite some time now, I understand. Our second speaker that we have is Encik Shamsul Ihsan Abdul Majid, or as we know him, Sam, Chief Technology and Innovation Officer for the Malaysian Communication Multimedia Commission, MCMC. And he is responsible for the Commission's technology, innovation, vision, and strategies for growth with the MCMC. And he will discuss about how the MCMC, even before the advent of the NDSP, has been using data in a way to try to not only better understand how, for example, telcos are doing their job, but then again turn it around so that we can then turn them into services for the rakyat. And finally, we have Ms. Hyejeong Lim, from Principal Manager for the Open Data Planning Team, National Information Society Agency of the Republic of Korea. And she is someone who's been working with the Open Data Center in Korea for 4 years, well, many years, and responsible for developing National Open Data Master Plan. All right. So, Encik Husni, can we start with you?
Yes.
Yes. So, Encik Husni, my understanding is you've been working on the NDSP, the National Data Sharing Plan.
Yeah.
And my question is, why does the government think the NDSP is an important thing to push? What is the value of data sharing to the government?
As per the introduction by the minister in the video shown earlier, I think it relates to the government vision to promote data sharing in a much wider scope. Because according to the minister, our data is our national treasure. You know, the popular saying is that data is the new oil. It's a very important component in digital economy. That is why, actually, it is not a new initiative. I'm a relative newbie, to put it, in my involvement regarding NDSP. It was, I believe it started as early as 2016, you know, to expand what we had in the civil service, the initiatives launched by Mampu for open data and government data dictionary to promote data sharing among the government ministries and agencies, and now we are going to expand it further to include cross-sectoral. By cross-sectoral, I mean public-private data exchange, which also involves the people. As you can see, of course, the vision of the NDSP is to promote a data-driven decision making in the government machinery. It's also to promote growth of the digital economy and to support innovation.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I have to say, because
Yeah.
when I was working with MDEC back in many years ago,
No
in the
wonder
late
you
90s.
look familiar.
And
Yeah.
but
Okay.
the story is, I mean, the thing is, the data dictionary was something that, oh, it'd be nice to have a data dictionary, but then having a data dictionary is not enough for sharing data, right?
Yeah, betul. Yeah, that is the case. That's why to put it in wider perspective, the initially before in the phase of development of the policy, the IDC consultant responsible for the initial development phase, they conducted a survey among the people and the businesses, and one of the important findings is we are not really at the very nascent stage of data sharing, and not yet at the advanced economy level. We are somewhere in the middle, right? And among the key fundamental issues are simple questions like people don't know how to share data. They are constrained from sharing data due to regulation or acts, and some of them don't want to due to the perceived advantage of having exclusive data on their part, right? But this NDSP is to put it all together, should I say? Because in last year, when the policy was adopted by the cabinet, it was also discussed at the Digital Economy Council and Fourth IR, which was chaired by the Prime Minister. And it was decided that the NDSP and also the data sharing policy for the government under Mampu will be vital to provide a soft launch in the phase of developing, as announced earlier this year by our economy minister, that the country is coming up with an omnibus act on data sharing. But as a soft launch, we are developing guidelines, we are developing a common platform to bridge the gap between the government and the private sector. And we are doing promotion like this Pocket Talk and many more to do it in a two-pronged approach. We are addressing the technical needs, as well as we are trying to reach out to the people about the benefits of data sharing and how to do it.
So this is one of the challenges. Encik Sam, Tuan Sam, I was going to say, no. So Sam actually, I was going to. How do you translate panjang dan lebar? He has got quite a broad and deep expertise, right, in both private and public sector, right? So we're talking now about this data-driven culture and how it can actually benefit the government. And maybe one of the issues is that government traditionally doesn't really want to share data with outside parties. And are we looking at a change in culture for government, and why is this good for the government?
Yeah, thank you, Dzof. Nice to meet you again, and good to have everybody here in this call. To answer Dzof's question, so number one, I feel that just to maybe highlight that it is about culture. It is not about tools. It is not about big things. It's just about how we do our day-to-day tasks. And Husni highlighted digital economy, where a portion of our economy is now in the digital space, about 22%. We want to go down, we want to go up to 25%. And in any digital economy, the oil is data. So without the oil, you can't gain the results from digital economy. So if data is the oil, therefore the oil needs to be used, needs to be handled, needs to be understood, just like any oil that we have in the physical world where it can be processed for higher value. So I've seen, I suppose, on two sides. One is my own experience in private sector where internal to the corporation or to the company, you have so much oil data in left and right of your functions, finance, procurement, and all that, which can be further leveraged for your management to gain more revenue. Government is the same, just that revenue is not our only thing. We got to do many, many more things. So by having more data across government landscape, so for example, sharing between one ministry with another ministry, it gives better insights into how we can serve the owner of the data. Typically, the owner could be you as the owner of your personal data. So how could government better serve citizens in what citizens need every day? So I suppose one example is what we all went through in terms of COVID. When COVID happened, we all, as citizens, we are wondering or wanting to have answers and information. And Ministry of Health started to reveal in GitHub, in open data, the number of daily cases that basically gave some of us some at least a level of transparency, a level of insight of what's happening nationwide on a daily or weekly scenario. So that's one example where some data is shared and some data is made open, and therefore it gives insights.
I mean, I want to also say that before that data was openly shared, I think the key point that every time the government had a press conference about COVID, everybody just wanted to hear the numbers and not really more about what are we doing, how are we going to address, right? Everyone was just fixated on numbers. When the data became open and everyone could access it any time, suddenly the news became more about, okay, how is the rollout program? What are we going to do to try to address this? I found that very interesting from a media perspective, actually, that once the data is open, go on.
And I found it very interesting as well from downstream impact, meaning that more people like you, media or academia or even businesses are able to in some way do your next steps, because you are now able to have some information in your hand where otherwise you can't really have that visibility. So to me, access to data is important, but governance of data is more important. Governance in the sense that Kementerian Kesihatan, in the example of COVID, they basically realized that certain data we shouldn't share, like the names of patients, the name of people who got COVID, we can't share. But the macro level of COVID numbers in certain district, mukim or states, that's pretty much generalized, and therefore there's no harm sharing. So that governance or classification of data, to me, it's one of the first steps that everybody should do, including government.
Okay, thank you very much. And since we're talking about sharing of data, and I would like to turn to Ms. Hyejeong now. As I said previously, Ms. Hyejeong, she's the principal manager of Open Data Planning Team of the National Information Society Agency in Korea. And I mean, just now Sam was talking about the fact that Malaysia was sharing its COVID data in a very open manner. It was like a GitHub repository that you could just write a short script to download into a table and then do analysis on your own. But Korea has had this open data as a policy for the whole government for almost a decade now, right? 8 years. Is that correct?
Yes, that's very correct.
This is not news to you.
Oh yes. So speaking of Korea, we have very strong legal framework. It's called Open Data Law, which has been legislated 2013. And this law actually makes all the single ministries and local governments and local public bodies to release the data sets in a negative manner. And when we speak of negative manner in Korea, do everything unless it's prohibited in the law. So if
So
it's
wait.
not, yeah, okay.
I want you to clarify this.
Okay.
You are saying that in Korea, you consider all data is open until you say it's not? Is that the short way of saying it?
Yes, kind of. But of course, that we have also stated in the law that those data sets should not be open, such as if it's related to national security issues or like personal information, or if it's related to like national interest. Of course, those data sets cannot be released, but unless it's prohibited in the law, all the government bodies are mandatory to release the data sets. And of course, that there are some agencies who are refusing to release the data sets, saying it's corporate secret or it's related to national security issues, right? Then how do we deal with those institutions is that we, Korean government, we carry out a data evaluation once in a year. And then we are evaluating whether they are exerting much efforts on releasing new data sets or like finding needs from the private sector, or are they monitoring the utilization of the data sets they are releasing and sharing to the public. And the interesting part is this result is reported to a president of Republic of Korea. So you may assume that how they are very motivated to share the data sets, right? And this result of evaluation is also linked with the salary of the like high officials of government bodies and public institutions. So that's also very great motivations, right? So these are some of the mechanisms that we are thrive for the institutions to share the data sets to the public.
Okay. All right. So I think we can we get everyone's picture on the screen at the same time? Is that possible? So I guess yes, this is partly by way of introduction, but actually from Ms. Hyejeong's case, I thought it's very interesting to see how Korea has pushed this forward. By the way, a lot of the questions I'm getting them from questions from the audience. There were some of which were submitted before, and I believe as we're having this conversation now, people can send more questions through. Yes, we already have one through the Q&A question. I just want to go back to this the quick question. Why is it? How can the government give good services, right? So this was actually a question that was from Sundram, from Red Contacts and Berhad. How can we utilize this data to enhance quality public service delivery? I guess my question to all the panelists, given how Ms. Hyejeong has talked about Korean's government way of thinking about data, in other words, think of it as the data is open first and then you put restrictions later. Do you think there's value to the Malaysian government that we, even between government agencies themselves, that government agencies in Malaysia could do their job better if we could access data between different departments and different ministries? I mean, is this an okay question? Encik Husni, any discussion about intergovernment sharing of data within the government?
Very much so. Also, from outside, it may seem a bit bleak for some time, but actually, it is moving. It is moving towards that direction. Very recently, last week, I joined this workshop organized by Mampu. It is to develop garis panduan, a circular for MyGDX 2.0. This is actually an intergovernment across the board to provide a common platform for government ministries and agencies to exchange data. Now, for the second phase, they are planning to expand it to the wider interfaces, like for example, with the businesses, with the people, government to citizen, government to enterprise, government to business. So actually, the government is looking towards that as well. So it's work in progress. If you look at the recent announcements by the government with the establishment of PADU, for example, under DOSM, the government is looking towards establishing a centralized database for essential data, for example. This is to tackle touch point issues such as subsidies and social welfare, things like that. You notice. And we have already, at the global stage, under the UN, the open government data has been incorporated as the one component which is evaluated every year to provide the international ranking of countries, right? So now, even at the regional level, open government data has been included as an integral component for FTAs and things like that. So we are also now talking about transboundary data sharing agreement. Yeah, but the more challenging part is to start from the national perspective, of course, and to promote, just like Sam said, we can't just talk about the frameworks and tools. We have to address real issues and make it work. The team.
I think you're right. I mean, the thing is, you want to put this data to good use, right? I mean, Sam, I mean, in my years, masa I was with MDEC, masa I was with Telencorp, sometimes I wish I could get some data from agencies because it would then be easy to come up with to understand what is the situation is, right? To implement some of our programs. Sam, do you think, Sam, that if this GDX, this data exchange thing becomes a proper reality, do you think that it would then motivate more initiatives? Because the data is there, you can look at it, then you can start talking and doing things that we haven't done before, right?
So I suppose the answer is yes, but it's not about tools or technology. Data can be shared even without my GDX. It can be just simply sent to each other within government via email, or from government to private sector via FTP or social media. So the point I'm trying to say here is that there are two data types that I would like to just highlight. Number one, data coming from citizen that government should have access to. Number two, data of government that citizens should have access to. So if I can maybe go to the second one, data of government, and government has, if I'm not mistaken, about 800 different functions that is set up to serve citizens. Functions like health and education and telecoms under KKD. And for a layman citizen to find out what's going on across 800 different functions that can assist or help my life, that's a pretty daunting exercise. So this is where access to data, but the access is easy way. It's not going to 800 different websites, which is very, very difficult, but going to a place where, as a layman, I can understand in my whole life of being in Malaysia, from the day that I was born, I'm in school, I have to buy a car, I have to go to work, and maybe I have to get a bank loan or whatever. Can I go to a single place that I can access government services that can assist me? And because of that, I may need to disclose my own information, my citizen information. And if possible, I only disclose it once, not many, many times.
Yes. I mean, I'm now reading some of the questions from the Q&A, and when you're talking about disclosing personal information to government, of course, the questions that are coming out now, Rachel asks, do you think Malaysia is lacking in terms of data privacy laws? And then another anonymous questioner asked, like, what are we doing with all that My Sejahtera data on the COVID, that personal data that we sent to My Sejahtera and all that? I mean, do you feel, because we have the PDPA, we have the Personal Data Protection Act, right? And the question is, and this is obviously only something that is relevant when you're talking about personal data. Do you have any opinions about how Malaysia can move forward in trying to protect personal data?
Yes, I would say one of the way is to invest in leadership in data management. So what I mean is that instead of having chief technology or chief digital officer, it would likely be more in the chief data officer, whether it's public sector or private sector. Because why? A data officer would be very much interested to have a 360 degrees ownership and journey of where the data starts and where the data ends. It's not a technology issue, it's a data issue.
Okay. Ms. Hyejeong, data privacy, is this an issue in Korea? Is it something that the government addresses through policy or through very strict laws? Do you chase down people who break data privacy and put them in jail? What do you do in Korea?
Yeah, of course, it is an issue. Like the data privacy always comes with the data, also in Korea. So what we are doing is that in our central portal, we have these functions that automatically detects whether the data contains personal information, such as if the data sets contains like social security numbers or like a phone number, we are detecting automatically. And then with addition to it, we are providing and educating. I'm actually totally agree with the Sam that it's the government officials, especially dealing with the data sets releasing to the public. So their literacy or their capabilities, like capacity of dealing with the data, is really important, and it should be playing key part with the data privacy. So we are providing a lot of training courses, especially on how to de-identify the data sets when they are sharing to the public. And we are also evaluating whether they've taken the courses on the de-identifications or pseudonymization of data sets. And that's how we are dealing with it.
I mean, I just want to clarify that I learned today that anonymization or de-identification of these data sets is not so trivial, right? Because Ms. Hyejeong said that it's possible a smart enough person can take two distinct sets and combine them and anonymize them, right?
Yes, because personal information still can be identified if they are converged, different anonymized data sets. So that's why we are recommending for a de-identify or pseudonymizations the data sets.
And this is policy that's in law, right? It's something that the law mandates.
Yeah, it's not in the law, but it's in the guideline.
Okay. Yes. I should also stay with you, Ms. Hyejeong. There is a question from Ahmad Nazri from the Victoria University of Wellington. I assume this is Wellington, New Zealand. How can startups use or commercialize open data? So the open data that Korea offers, it comes without any strings attached, right? Anybody can leverage that open data to do whatever they want with it.
Right. And there is very, I think I've never seen in other nations, but there is very unique instruments in Korea. So it's stated in the law also that we do not allow government bodies to develop a services using open data unless private sector has capacity or potential to develop open data services. So let's say, let's take an example. So there are two same functioning weather forecast application. So one is developed by National Weather Agency and one is developed by very small data companies. Then citizens will download the one developed by National Weather Agency, right? Because people will think that's more reliable or accurate. Then the other apps will lose its competitiveness, right? Even though they have this capabilities or all the technology. So in order for that not to happen, we do not allow government bodies to develop a services that's if it's similar to a private sector.
Oh,
so
you don't
why,
allow competition.
yeah, no competition. So
Okay.
of course there are exceptions. If it's related to like a national disaster like COVID-19, of course government can intervene and develop services, but otherwise in principles we do not allow them to develop services. So that's why there are about 3,000 app services developed by private sector using our open government data, and very small app services or web services developed by government services if you go to the Google App Stores in Korea. I think that's very unique in Korea. Because we really think the private sector is our key driver for making this data ecosystem sustainable. We really want to give opportunity for them to grow more.
Okay. Unche Husni, what did you think about Ms. Hyejeong said, the fact that this one of the ideas is that when this data is out there available and almost welcoming the private sector to leverage this data, right? And to a certain degree, it also helps the government provide services depending on what the data is. I mean, when you were looking at the NDSP, were you hoping? I mean, I know that for the COVID data, for example, when the COVID data was made available, there were a lot of young Malaysians, volunteers almost, who came out and built their own dashboards, which were very functional and worked very well. And I mean, that was, of course, during a national crisis. Like, people were happy to do that. But what do you think about this, Husni, when the government shares data?
Yeah, actually, COVID-19 is quite a good turning point. Not to say turning point lah, but according to many research, the COVID experience has sort of made people more willing to share their data. For example, as Sam has mentioned, the development of MySejahtera as a super app, and now currently that the ministry is expanding the function of MySejahtera to also include other things like updating of your medical record and setting up of appointments with the hospitals. So they are moving post COVID. But I want to get back to your question regarding open data. You know, how to the challenge now is to promote people to use the readily available data made available on data.gov.my. And also basic issues like updating of the data and to make it more high quality, you know, to make available more granular data, and also to address reservation among the agencies when it comes to data classification.
So what kind of reservations do agencies have right now?
Yeah. Partly due to that lack of awareness. The three questions that I mentioned earlier, don't know how to, you know, can't share and don't want to, you know.
But I put it to you, it's because it's not been done before. This is something new, so it will take time.
Yeah, it will take time. Thank you for understanding. But actually, they are currently in the process of improving the database, and I've learned that Mampu is in the process of establishing this dashboard to visualize key data in the repository for open data, data.gov.my. And there are similar initiatives at the sectoral level as well. You know, we have, like, for example, the Malaysia Open Science Platform under MOSTI, which is to make open research data, starting with those research which are funded by the government, to make it open. You can research various subjects and you can share the data, and if you require further clarification, or you need the full manuscript or things like that, you could go direct to the researcher.
Okay, so you're saying that if it's government-funded research,
yeah,
the results of that research should be easily accessible by everyone. Is that
so
fund?
that's what they're doing with the guideline and also the platform. They very recently presented this guideline at our Jawatan Kuasa Pelaksana or Implementation Committee for the NDSP. So I'm just mentioning as these are several success stories lah. That the respective ministries and agencies are coming forward to be more proactive in data sharing with the public and also with their stakeholders.
I mean, the other thing is, so we've just spent some time talking about open data, but the national data, the NDSP, is not just about open data, right? There's also the potential for collaboration interagency and between the government and private sector to share data.
Yes, that's why. That's why, as you said earlier, everything takes time. So, open data is this starting point. You know, of course, you'll go eventually into data analytics. You know, providing solutions. You know, other things like development, product development. You know. But we are addressing the fundamental issues like developing guidelines, you know, increasing engagement, and also collaboration between the government entities and also the private sector in developing products. Like, for example, my data with SSM, right? How data is being used to develop the apps and to exchange it to produce something useful for the public.
And then so I'm coming to a question from Janice from Post Malaysia, right? I'm trying to reach this question. How do we strike a balance between data privacy and data openness? Because if you're sharing this data with parties from outside the government, how do you make sure that data privacy is maintained, right? I mean, one, of course, is to not share any personal data ever. That would be one way of doing it.
That's a no-no. I think by way of balancing, like talking at the strategic level, our minister, YB Tuan Fahmi Fazil, has announced that cybersecurity is now our third pillar. You know, after developing, we are not just looking into developing digital economy, but we are looking at the fundamental issues related to cybersecurity and data privacy and protection, for example. And we are currently looking into amending the Act, you know, strengthening JPDP, for example, and also looking at those issues. You know, even NACSA is coming up with the Cybersecurity Act. It's in the pipeline. But looking at the practical issues that you mentioned earlier, besides the framework, the legal framework and regulations, we have to look into awareness about basic technical aspects of data sharing, like the need for consent and transparency, you know, encryption and anonymization. The point mentioned earlier by Sam, data governance, I agree that this is a very important aspect of data sharing. provide education and awareness, ethical use of data, how it must be done ethically, and the instrument as well, how to develop data sharing agreements and things like that. Oversight and accountability. I think that this is a very important issue to address, because the fear to share, because that there are perceptions that once you share your data with telcos and corporate entities, it can be shared with other entities without your consent, and things like that lah. So we have to address these concerns.
Yeah, as soon as you mentioned telcos, I was going to Sam. Sam, so I mean, this thing, right? Is it this? There's one train of thought that says government should never share any private data with any outside entity ever, and that way you don't have any issues of data privacy being leaked. Is this realistic? Is this something that or is it that we need to make our data protection standards more mature? We need to put in place safeguards, and then we need to learn how to do it. Because, correct or not, a lot of people, when they go to a website, they says this website has cookies. A lot of people I see just click accept all and then carry on, and not realizing that's one of the data privacy issues that laws were there to try to address. Sam?
Yeah, so Malaysia is a developing country. So we have seen in developed countries, in particular in Europe, where the framework of GDPR is a lot more matured, where European citizens have access to a EU dashboard, where European citizens are able to understand where their data is being used by respective government or service provider. And even, if I'm not mistaken, maybe they are going to a level where European citizens have the ability to remove or revoke their data from being continually used by some other service provider. So the example that Dzof, you mentioned just now, where as a citizen you opt in into the website that has got cookie because you just wanted the convenience. So fine, you have opt in into one, but do you as a citizen, do you have a dashboard that you understand the entire internet that you have already opt in and you didn't opt in, and can you remove that opt-in option that you gave earlier? So I suppose these are certain things that is a journey for citizens, it's a journey for government. We get to see how South Korea is doing it, how Europe is doing it. I suppose from a service provider point of view, whether you are a company or whether you are a government giving services to people, you ought to have people within your organization that are very much well-versed, as what our speaker from Korea said, very well-versed in managing data on behalf of somebody else. Do you have the skills? Do you know what kind of data is termed as personal data and what is termed not as personal data, for example? And also, can you also demonstrate via audit, for example, that you have done what is supposed to be done? Going for training is one thing, but demonstrating you know what you have learned is something else.
Yeah, I mean there's this difference between like the theory and then putting that policy into practice, right? I mean this topic, this little topic of what does data privacy mean and what does personal data and what is the that is we can have a single session about that for an hour. Ms. Hyejeong, I was hoping we talked a bit just now about data privacy and what the Korean government does in terms of its policies in saying how much of the data should be not anonymized. What was the word you use? That you should remove identifying features about it, right? But in terms of protecting the citizens, is there an understanding that citizens themselves should also be proactive in protecting their own privacy? Is it something that the average Korean citizen understands, or is it that the government really needs to put the safeguards in place, make sure you don't go off track, as it were?
I think the both sides are really key part in when we speak of data privacy issue. Of course, the like understanding of citizens and like their willingness or their right is really important. So of course, like through the My Data project in Korea, the citizens have the right to know which information has been used by the governments in Korea. So of course, the citizens' rights is very important issue in Korea too.
Do citizens in Korea have a right to, or what Sam was saying, to maybe have certain information about themselves deleted? I mean, or at least, I mean, this idea that if you have my private data, I should know what private data you have about me. I should be able to tell you when that data is wrong so you can correct it. And then there's this other one, which is like, I also don't want you to keep this data. I mean, is this something, this is one of the ideas about data privacy, you know?
Yes, but like that's not also happening in Korea yet. But yeah, I think it will take some time too. Like,
okay. I want to go to this question by well, an anonymous attendee who said that would there be an opportunity for individuals to monetize their own personal data? I have some things to say about this, but I was just curious. In Korea, is there an idea that citizens can monetize their own personal data? Is this a radical idea, or is it something that it's been around for a while?
Well, yeah, well, that's not also happening in Korea yet. But like in Korea, let's say, like we are purchasing some data sets from a private sector, let's say telecom company or like a card company. Yeah, we are purchasing them. So we have very specific guideline that how much we should pay for them. But we don't have any specific guidelines for that one. But I think that's something where we should start working in the very soon future. But of course, there should be a very specific guidelines on how to monetize the data set and how we are gonna pay or like reimburse the data sets.
Because the reason why I have something to say about it, because we talked to a company in Malaysia called oh my gosh, what they call Data Swift, I think. And in Husni and Sam, this is a company that has this idea that individuals should be able to monetize their own personal data by keeping control of the record of their individual data and then letting private companies access the data as and when they're permitted, and sometimes obviously in return for either rewards or I suppose the most extreme end, like for cash. Is this something that you have looked at or considered in the NDSP?
I think I'll let Sam go first.
Okay.
I feel that it is about responsible sharing, and also you have consciously opted into this service. Yeah. If you have consciously opted in, not somebody else opted you on your behalf. You actually consciously opted in, and then you also consciously want the reward from the sharing of what personal data that you have. Then, well, I suppose there's not much the law can do, but the existing law can do. But I suppose in the future, it would be similar to a situation where maybe the government needs to understand what action a citizen has taken that may impact on the citizen's own life. And would the future laws and regulation help to protect citizens from harming themselves.
Okay. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's the sort of thing like if you tell the average person, hey, you can make money from your own personal data, everyone gets excited about it. But I feel if you don't really understand it,
The perils as well.
yeah, I mean, things can go wrong, right?
Yeah, so disclosure by the service provider that they are going to do X, Y, Z with the data that they are going to give. Therefore, from a data owner point of view, you consciously agree that X, Y, Z is what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it is related or not, but I think it's quite similar to the issue of social media data, for example. Once you consented and you fill in all the boxes and you share your own data day to day, there have been issues previously with Facebook and things like that. But as Sam has said earlier, under the current act, nothing much that we can do if you consented to sharing your personal data.
Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
a new thing, and this is something that I mean again, I'm not knocking the company that wants to do this. I think it's a very interesting idea. I think when I first heard about it, I thought it was intriguing. That was the tack that they wanted to take. I thought that they might, if they were. I was just wondering how are they going to persuade people to do this. But I feel like data, like the phrase "data is the new oil," and many companies want to get involved in trying to use data. I'm partly mentioning it because MDEC has this what they call the data analytics and artificial intelligence playbook. So yeah, all right, here we go. The SME data-driven playbook. So this is an initiative by MDEC for SMEs who want to get involved in the steps leading up to eventually what we now know in 4IR is big data. But at the initial stages, right, I mean, what is data? How do you use data? How can you commercialize it? How can you use it to do your business better? And what the SME data-driven playbook is it's meant to inspire readers and businesses to think about what the possibilities of data is and gives you some step-by-step advice. And then that's the QR code on the left. The QR code on the right is the data analytics AI readiness assessment. It's like an assessment that companies can use to see how ready you are for data and data analytics. It's like a quiz that you take yourself and you answer the questions. At the end of it, it'll tell you what stage you're at and how you can improve your steps. So these are for companies that want to take their first steps towards being part of the data-driven culture and would like some idea of how to get going. All right, I think we should start wrapping up now. Encik Husni, what is your single takeaway from this session? What is the thing, besides the fact that we both have good taste in baju batik, what is the thing that you want to take away from this?
I think I want to remain optimistic and positive in this regard. I want to develop on the popular saying that data is the new oil, and go back to back then during the 18th and 19th century America, when they discovered oil, the petroleum. They only go for kerosene and coal, for example. Before initially they discovered petrol or gas, but it was too volatile. It explodes, until there was a synergy between bankers like JP Morgan and innovators like Tesla, which invented the internal combustion engine and the electricity, for example. I'm bringing this analogy to where we are now. You know the importance of data. But you have to address the issue of having a conducive ecosystem. So this is the idea. We are trying to encourage collaboration. The topic today is very appropriate. We're talking about data democracy, how to make it more accessible, how to teach people to benefit and to safeguard their own data, and things like that. So I think our objective for the future, for the implementation of the NDSP, is that to make it understandable to the layman, and also to encourage cross-sectoral collaboration. Thank you.
This will take some time, but we have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, we have to start somewhere. So,
okay, Encik Sam, any thoughts, final thoughts from today's session?
Yeah, so we can start somewhere, and therefore I maybe invite participants to check out data.gov.my. But from a point of view of, if the data that you seek, the open data that you seek is not there, I believe data.gov.my is also a platform that you can request such data to be made available. That request will then go to the custodian of the data for them to have an internal discussion on, should this data be made open or not. So that would trigger that conversation on more data to be made available. Secondly, when that conversation happens, I'm very sure public sector also realize that data.gov.my is not just federal government. It's also needs to be opened up to state and local authorities, because from a commercial perspective, commercial company perspective, perhaps innovation, startup requires more localized data, not national data. So things like what's happening in your city only, not for the whole country. So availability of data is not just on macro, but also on micro, and basically is a chicken and egg conversation. If it's not there, then perhaps you can ask, or you can request, and then the internal discussion then would then be triggered. The governance will then kick in terms of, yes, this is technically can be open, or technically can be shared, or perhaps even cannot be shared because it's too sensitive.
Yeah. Well, I better not start responding to that. But yes, you make some very good points, Encik Sam. I say I shouldn't start responding to that, because as soon as you said local government, I said, yeah, it's like sometimes when I have conversations with my rep outside here in the Padang, and I don't know, I better not say about that. Miss Hyejeong, I'm so sorry we only had this little bit of time, because you shared a few things and some of it sounded so interesting. I actually wanted to do follow-up questions, but this is the end of today's session. What is your takeaway from today? I mean, based on experience that you've had in Korea, and maybe listening to the kind of issues that we seem to be tackling here in Malaysia, I feel that we're still taking very early steps, and maybe we have a lot to learn.
Oh yeah, it was my pleasure to find out how Malaysian is doing, and I'm really very impressed with all the policies and initiatives that you are taking. But in Korea, so trust me, we've gone through a lot of challenges, and we are still facing a lot of challenges. And actually, we've legislated another law that's data sharing between the government bodies in 2021, and I think that we are more at the initial phase, because there are still data silos even in Korea, and governments are refusing to release the data sets even for the government bodies, and they are more because I don't know, because so that's why there are many challenges for us to go through. So I think that we are on the same page on that one. So I really hope that there would be more opportunities for this. And I know that 1 hour is really short for us to discuss all the details. So I really hope that there would be another opportunity for us to discuss more in depth. Thank you so much.
I would be happy to see you again. Thank you. So, yes, thank you very much, everyone, for attending this. I believe this brings our session to a close. I'm now checking my my chat on this. Yes, thank you for joining us today. And yes, for those interested in learning more, don't forget the MDEX Data Analytics Readiness Playbook, and there's also a National Data Sharing Policy Series 4 that will happen on the 19th of September. The link is in the chat, I believe, if you want to sign up for that one. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam perpaduan, salam Malaysia Madani. I'm pleased to share a groundbreaking initiative that is shaping the future of our nation, the National Data Sharing Policy, or NDSP. In 2022, the government launched the NDSP, a visionary policy that transcends boundaries, encompassing the public sector, the private sector, and the rakyat. This policy holds the key to fostering a data sharing environment that is not only conducive, but transformative. It aims to unleash the true potential of data, improve the quality and transparency of service delivery, stimulate innovation, and drive economic growth through data-driven solutions. The formulation of NDSP envisions a nation where data knows no bounds, where its accessibility and usability are at the core of our digital landscape. By actively engaging in this endeavor, we are laying a strong foundation for the next evolution of our digital ecosystem. We're embarking on a journey to build a stronger and more secure digital foundation for Malaysia. It is the keystone of our digital transformation agenda, empowering us to become a more inclusive, resilient, sustainable, and forward-thinking nation. Embracing responsible and ethical data sharing will unlock significant value for our society and economy, enhancing our competitiveness on the global stage. I encourage all of you to support this policy and explore the vast opportunities that data sharing presents. To raise awareness and gather valuable feedback, we have initiated the NDSP series, a collaborative effort by the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, or MDEC, Malaysia Kini, and Digital News Asia, or DNA, with the support of the Ministry of Communications and Digital. This series aims to educate the public about the benefits and challenges of data sharing, while gathering opinions and suggestions to enhance the policy and its implementation. Your active participation in these discussions will be instrumental in shaping the data sharing practices in Malaysia, leading us towards a secure and dynamic digital world. And let us embark on this remarkable journey together.
Malaysia's digital journey began more than 2 decades ago when MSC Malaysia was set up to transform the country into a knowledge-based economy. Since then, MSC Malaysia has contributed immensely towards the growth of the nation's digital economy. Our next step is to take the digital transformation from the corridor to the world. Introducing Malaysia Digital, a strategic initiative which will empower the rakyat, businesses and foreign investments. Malaysia Digital will also elevate the participation of Malaysians and local businesses in revolutionizing the world's digital economy. Malaysia Digital opens doors for Malaysians by providing equitable access to digital tools, knowledge and income opportunities. It offers new business opportunities and growth through a supportive digital ecosystem. It also provides flexible and agile investment facilitation to make the country investment friendly. The goal is to drive the digital ecosystem and develop the digital economy to a stage where it contributes at least 25.5% of our GDP and creates 500,000 jobs by 2025.
Malaysia Digital will galvanize public-private partnerships to accelerate the growth of our digital economy and drive positive transformation that ultimately benefit the rakyat, businesses, investors, and also the whole nation.
Establishing Malaysia into a digital nation, one with more in-depth, stronger and resilient economy, society, and governance. Stepping into tomorrow's digital future today.